We'll now recognize the gentleman from Oklahoma making his valiant return after tussling with a bull.
Yes, sir.
Happy to have you back, Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I very much appreciate that. And I would note to my colleagues, it has been a long time since I've sat this far down in a committee hearing. But after my interaction with the 1,000-pound bull, I'm just happy to be here. So with that, thank you. And I have the
ask
opportunity.
unanimous consent to restore the gentleman's time. We're happy to have you back.
Thank you. And my opportunity to visit with my old friend from many encounters and many discussions. Before I begin my questions, I'd like to reiterate a few points made in the bipartisan letter that I sent regarding the SEC's 2 proposed rulemakings on security-based swaps and security loans. And I'd like to enter that letter into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection.
These proposals, I believe, could impair market liquidity while increasing risks and cost. And to avoid unintended negative consequences, the SEC should study the data for regulatory purposes before moving forward with public dissemination. This is consistent with the Dodd-Frank Act, and I hope the Commission will give serious consideration to this approach. Now, Chairman Gensler, I'd like to focus on the proposed rule branded as the Safeguarding Advisory Client Assets. The proposed rule would impose requirements that are inconsistent with the CFTC rules, and you've spent a good bit of time working on CFTC rules in a past life, and would indirectly give the SEC, I fear, authority over the CFTC's regulated markets. And in addition to being outside of the SEC's authority, this would create the significant problems, I think, across the entire financial markets. Have you consulted with the CFTC on the impact of the proposed rule? And if so, for curiosity, what was their feedback?
First, Representative Lucas, it's so good to see you. And your letter with regard to securities-based swaps not only gained my attention, but there are many people at the SEC. I would say this is Representative Lucas's letter. Will you please take a close look at it?
Thank you.
But on your topic and your question about safeguarding of assets, the staff has consulted with fellow regulators at the CFTC about that safeguarding rule, taken their thoughts into consideration. We're some time away. I mean, this was only proposed earlier this year, and it usually takes 12 to 24 months before we even consider adoption. But I think that there are paths forward in terms of the intersection between their Rule 1.25 and these custody rules.
I just think it's imperative that the SEC refrain from applying the proposal to CFTC regulated markets. And I hope that you'll be able to commit to that, even if it means perhaps at some point withdrawing the rule entirely. Now, second question. The Commission has also recently proposed a rule regarding the use of predictive data analytics used by broker-dealers and investment advisors. The proposed rule casts a broad net over what is considered a covered technology. And I quote directly from the rule. A covered technology is defined as an analytical, technological, computational function, an algorithm, a model, a correlation matrix, or similar method of process that optimizes, predicts, guides, forecasts, or directs investment-related behaviors or outcomes. What a mouthful. The included economic analysis explains that the rule would require a substantial resources to comply with and would prevent smaller firms from entering the market or adopting new technology at all. So, Chair Gensler, could you clarify what technologies are covered, and is the intent of the rule to make it difficult for firms to employ certain kinds of technology?
The intent of the rule, A, is to be technology neutral, and it's only about one really core thing, is that when investment advisors or broker-dealers interact with investors, that interaction, that if they're using, as you said, a covered technology, but predictive data analytics, that they continue to put the investor's interest ahead of their own, and they not, in reverse, put the investment advisor's interest ahead of the investing public. That's the core of this proposal.
I'd simply add that given the rapid advances in machine learning and generative AI, the United States should lead the way in the development of innovative technologies that would unlock new economic opportunities, and we should be careful not to be so hostile to new technologies that we stop innovation in its tracks. With that, I'll simply say thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to Mr. Chairman, I spent 7 weeks being calm and at home. I've not been that calm and that long at home since 1986. I'm happy to be back with all of you. And with you, Mr. Chairman, yield back.
Well, Frank, we're happy to have you back. And as a former chair of current chair of one and a former chair of another committee, we honored the old bulls.
And I missed the ranking member, too.